US President Donald Trump will be delivering his State of the Union address in just a few hours from now. He took to Twitter ahead of that big speech. He said, and I'm quoting, "Tremendous number of people are coming up through Mexico in the hope of flooding our southern border. We have sent additional military. We will build a human wall if necessary. If we had a real wall, this would be a non-event." The White House has announced a list of 13 Americans who will be attending the State of the Union address as his guests. One interesting guest to watch out for will be 11-year-old Joshua Trump. He is one of the reported 4,788 Americans with that surname. In December, Joshua reportedly stopped using his last name at school, and his parents homeschooled him at one point because of the bullying that he was facing because of his last name. The sixth grader from Wilmington is expected to attend that State of the Union to represent the issue of prevention of bullying. That's a key element of an initiative that's been taken by the First Lady Melania Trump. All eyes also on the House Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, who will be seated just behind the president. The California Democrat has been sparring with the president for weeks now, which also led to the government shutdown. She has refused to grant Donald Trump the $5.7 billion that he's been seeking for the border wall. Trump's address was rescheduled after that government shutdown, which lasted 35 days. It became the longest in American history. On the foreign policy front, there are several issues that the world will be closely watching that Donald Trump will be speaking on, including developments in Venezuela and Afghanistan. Let's go straight across now to our correspondent in Washington, D.C., Kate Fisher, who's been closely tracking the developments. Just a few hours ago, Kate, Donald Trump's remarks also coming amid a widening divide, to say the least. He's already warned of another government shutdown. He's laid his intentions very clear over the border wall issue. That's, of course, one of the many issues that will be touched upon in that crucial address. What are you picking up?
Absolutely, you're right. The wall will be one of the centerpieces that everybody watching will be looking to hear what it is he is going to say about that. You mentioned there that we are told he is likely to talk about the need for unity, which of course is very different from what we've seen in the last few weeks, if not months, with the government of the United States. You have a really big divide between the Democrats and the Republicans. The government was shut down for the longest time it has been shut down in history. It's only just reopened, and they are still trying to hammer out a deal to ensure that it continues to stay open. And one of the big sticking points about that is this wall. President Trump wants to build a physical border wall between the southern US border and Mexico. He says it's necessary for national security and to control immigration. The Democrats are completely opposed to that. So it will be very interesting to see what he says about it during this speech. There are some who think that he may use the speech to declare the need for a wall on the southern border as a national emergency in law, which would mean that he, as the president, could invoke funds to do what he deemed necessary to end that national emergency, and he deems a wall necessary. Now, that would go against all precedent. Presidents in the past have not invoked this to input one of their pet policies, if you like. And there are a lot of people, even in the Republican Party, his party, who will not want him to do that because they wouldn't want a future Democratic president to use the same methods to get policies that they want enforced. So there are lots of critics for that. So people will be watching, though. Will he use this speech as a moment to suggest that he is going to do that? Although most people think that he won't, as most of the advice he is getting is to not do that. And he knows that many people within his own party don't support that. However, what he does say about the wall will be closely analysed, because it could give us an example of what is going to happen as regarding the whether the government will shut down again. Will he stay really strong to his belief that there needs to be a wall, or will he be willing to compromise with Democrats to see if they can hammer out a deal whereby the government continues to stay open?
Indeed, and he's already talked about that human wall in that tweet as well, but also talking a little bit about who all are expected to attend. That list includes 11-year-old Joshua Trump as well. That, of course, coming along expected lines, given the emphasis that Melania Trump has already laid on prevention of bullying.
Yeah, that's right. The President and the First Lady traditionally invite guests to the Congress, to the United States Congress, to hear and watch the President give this address to the nation. And usually they choose people who kind of reflect the narrative that the President is trying to tell and trying to lead the country in. So, yes, there is this young boy who has been bullied at school because of his name, because of the surname he has of Trump. He will be there as an honoured guest of the First Lady and the President, but also other people who kind of speak to the narrative that President Trump is trying to portray. So there will be a woman who was in prison but was granted clemency by the President and has now been released from jail. That was one of President Trump's policies this year, to let people who are in jail, who've been serving a long time in jail for relatively minor offences, to be released. So she will be there. There will also be a survivor from the Pittsburgh synagogue shooting last year. There will be a police officer who was wounded during that, as well as one of the survivors from the congregation. And there'll also be the family of somebody who was killed by an illegal immigrant. Again, going back to that core message from President Trump, the need, he says, for more of a clampdown on immigration. So the guests that are chosen by the First Lady and the President really trying to reflect some of the policies that President Trump wants to highlight for the coming year.
Absolutely, all eyes on that crucial address, which of course is taking place after it was postponed earlier due to that government shutdown. We're going to leave it there for the moment. Thanks very much indeed, Kate Fisher, for getting us the highlights of what's expected.